Hello, my friends. I think after a long time, I am creating this third video. I think the initial two videos I discussed about the concept of Arudha, not so much from a theoretical standpoint, but more focused on how to go about calculating Arudha Pada, and especially the exceptions that people need to take into account while working them out. And as I said, uh, each person does it differently, and there is a lot of variation in the way people do it. But I still think that there is misunderstanding in terms of how to calculate the Arudha Padas. Many of the astrologers don't consider exceptions. And trust me, it's a universal concept and the biggest gift to the astrological community, the concept of Arudha. In my view, if you know how to use Arudha the right way, you really need not learn, 10 different types of dashas. Now, I know there are astrologers who specifically use conditional dasha systems when certain conditions are fulfilled in the chart. But trust me, it's a lot of things that you'll have to end up committing to your memory. And I feel that it's better to use a universal dasha, but it's like mastering one technique rather than learning 10 different techniques. Well, that said, it's not that I don't know other dashas. I have researched on many different types of dashas, Jaimini dashas. The way I calculate Jaimini Karakas, I think very, very few people really do it that way. I see most of the books following the same technique, that the highest degree in the chart, in the natal chart, is Atma Karaka, the second highest degree is Amati Karaka, and all that stuff. I really don't want to get into that discussion at this point in time. But nevertheless, since the first two videos were more around explaining the concept of how Arudha works and how to go about calculating them, this, as promised, this is more like an example of how brilliantly it works in bringing out events. Now, there are some rules that I would definitely like to point out, because those are things that you may know or you may not know. But I think it's better that I just give a quick introduction to those rules. So remember, the divisional chart has quite a lot of importance. It's not something to be ignored. So in this example, if you see my screen, it's the chart of a person. Okay, and what you see on the left, the bigger one is actually the natal chart, and then here you see the Navamsha chart, the D9 chart. Below that, you actually see the Arudha chart, and this is the Arudha chart for D1. Please remember that the concept of Arudha, the Arudha Padas, can be calculated for each of the divisional charts. It's not confined to the natal chart. Okay, and it works brilliantly. There are, you will see certain dasha and subdasha combinations, and you will not see direct connection between the houses. The moment you work out the Arudha Padas, you will immediately see how they are connected, and that itself will increase the probability of the event taking place. Of course, you anyway need transits to clinch your predictions, but even just using the dasha and the subdasha, or the dasha and the bhakti, if you use Arudha Padas, it will give you a very clear picture about the possibility of an event taking place. Now, with that said, okay, let me directly touch upon one or two important points. Remember that if you are running the dasha of a particular planet, okay, and if that planet happens to be, okay, in the lagna of the divisional chart, okay, then any event related to that divisional chart is definitely a probability. Like, for example, if it is a Mercury dasha that you are running, for now consider Vimshotri dasha. The same concept is applicable for Yogini dasha or other dashas as well. But I would like to confine it to either Vimshotri or Yogini. Maybe in this video I will consider Yogini as an example. So assume that it is the period of Mercury, and you are looking at a possibility of marriage. Now, since Mercury is the Lagna Lord, there is a high probability of this event happening, in the dasha of Mercury, or the bhakti of Mercury, subdasha. Similarly, it could also be a planet that is in the ascendant. So it could either be the lord of the ascendant, or it could be a planet in the ascendant. Please remember, in the individual divisional charts, if that planet is either the lord of the ascendant or in the ascendant, it really increases the probability of an event taking place. Similarly, for example, if you are considering the D9 chart, which is a Navamsha, which we typically see for marriage prospects, general luck and stuff. But since we are talking about marriage, which is one of the examples I'm going to cover, it is also important that a planet in this, or planets in the seventh house or ruling the seventh house, are also taken into consideration. If you see a broader rule, it's like, be it natal chart or be it Navamsha chart, as far as an event like marriage needs to be predicted based on the dasha and the subdasha, typically you will see planets in the second house, seventh house, or the 11th house, or the planets ruling the second house, seventh house, or the 11th house. And this is applicable in both the natal chart as well as the D9 chart, the Navamsha chart, the divisional chart. Okay. Maybe if you still have doubts, you can write in the comments window, and I can try to create a concise document so that you get these rules right. So with that said, I don't want to do too much of writing in this video. I thought the focus should be more on how these predictive techniques work. Okay. And if your software is able to calculate that, nothing like it, or else I would say that you can directly compute it by hand, using the previous two videos that I have shot, right? Okay, now let's directly jump into an event example. Now this person got married in the month of January. Okay, he got married in the month of January in 2014. Okay, this person got married in January 2014, and if you really see the nearest dasha, right? Let me take Yogini Dasha as an example. He got married, before he got married in January 2014. So, considering Yogini Dasha as an example, it is Venus Dasha and Rahu Bhukti, or Venus Dasha and Rahu Sabdasha. Okay. Now, if you really look at the D9 chart, okay, as I said, Venus is anyway present in the 7th house. So definitely, Venus has the possibility of giving marriage because it is placed in the 7th house of the D9 chart. So, it is quite clear that, Venus has a strong chance of giving marriage. Okay. Now, if I also have to consider the Arudha chart, okay, I'm looking at the Arudha chart now. Here, if you see Venus in the natal chart, Venus is in the 10th house. Okay, this is the natal chart, whereas this is the divisional chart. Now Venus is in the 10th house of the natal chart, and the Arudha Pada of Venus actually falls in the 7th house. So the Arudha Pada of Venus falls in the 7th house. So maybe I can demonstrate that with the software so that you will come to know. I'm not again going to explain the calculation mechanism. So if you really see, Venus is in the 10th house. So the Arudha Pada of 10th house, which is A10, actually falls in the 7th house. Got it? So obviously, even in the natal chart, Venus has a connection with the 7th house because the Arudha Pada of Venus falls in the 7th house from the Lagna. Okay? In the natal chart, the Arudha Pada of Venus falls in the 7th house. 7th house is the house of marriage relationship. Also, in the D9 chart, Venus is in the 7th house. So that again, strengthens. So, you can safely assume that, in the Venus Dasha, there is a very, very strong chance of this person, entering into a relationship. Of course, there is the transits related stuff, which I will anyway cover. But I just wanted to drive this point home. Okay. Now that we're talking about Venus, the subdasha is Rahu. Okay, as I said, this person got married in January 2014, so it is still under the Venus Rahu period. So now let's go to Rahu. Okay, so if you see Rahu, so Rahu in the natal chart is in the 6th house. Okay, and that doesn't give you any clue, whether how this person would have got married in a Venus Rahu sub period. Okay. So if you really see here, it may not really give any clue. But if you go to D9, okay, so if you go to D9, Rahu is in the third house of the D9 chart, and the Arudha Pada of Rahu in the D9 chart, if you see, which is basically 1, 2, 3, A3. So now I'll have to again, show you the Arudha Pada computation in the D9 chart. So A3 actually comes here. So if you really see, the Arudha Pada of Rahu in the D9 chart falls in the 7th house. Okay, it falls in the 7th house. What you see is the Arudha chart for D9, the Arudha Pada calculated for the D9 chart. So Rahu actually has a relationship with the 7th house, because the Arudha Pada of Rahu, so if you really see Arudha Pada of Rahu, this is Leo, 1, 2, 3. Again from there you have to go 3 houses, 1, 2, 3. So Arudha Pada of Rahu falls in the 7th house. Okay, and that's where Rahu has the potential for giving marriage. Second way of looking at it, please note that typically when we talk about nodes, they end up giving the results of the signs they are posited in, the dispositor. Okay, the dispositor of Rahu, or maybe the planet that is conjoined with Rahu. In this case, Rahu is alone, not conjoined with any other planet, so we consider the dispositor, and in this case the dispositor of Rahu is Sun. Now if you really observe, it's not that always you will have to take 7th house. The natural 7th sign of the zodiac is also the sign of relationship. So in this case, the dispositor of Rahu, which is Sun, is in the natural 7th sign of relationship and marriage. So in two ways Rahu has relationship with 7th house. One is the Arudha Pada of Rahu falls in 7th house, and the dispositor of Rahu is in the 7th sign. Hence, during Venus Rahu period, considering so many vibrations associated with the 7th house, okay, this person got married. Now I am not going to cover transits in this particular video. Maybe I will cover that for another video. But all I wanted to tell you is you can liberally apply the Arudha Pada concept in natal chart as well as divisional charts. And it's not that the Arudha Pada of a house should fall in that particular house. The planet under consideration can also be the lord of that particular Arudha Pada. Like for example, there could be a case where Rahu could be the lord of A7. I mean the lord of A7, or Rahu could be the lord of A5. So it's not that its path should fall in that particular house. It can also be lord of that particular Arudha Pada and still have connection. So maybe Venus could be the lord of A7. So Venus is the lord of the Arudha Pada of the 7th house. That way also it will get connected to marriage. So I think this is a good example. I will provide many more examples and also blend this with transit, so that you'll know that it's not just the Dasha Bhakti. You also need to take into account the transits of major planets like Jupiter and Saturn to ensure that along with the Dasha and Bhakti, it is even the transits that clinch the prediction. So I think this has been a good introduction after the initial explanation of the concept of Arudha. Have a nice weekend, and see you soon with another interesting video using these concepts. Thank you. Good day.